Nick and Kel, I got you. We in the dome right now, we in the zone right now. Put your hands in the air, cause it's on right now. Yeah, we back up in this thing and we coming for the crown. Nick and Kev on the mic.
It's about to go down.
We in the dome right now, we in the zone right now. Put your hands in the air, cause it's on right now. Yeah, we back up in this thing and we coming for the crown. Nick and Kev on the mic.
It's about to go down.
As you can tell, last year it was an off year, but we reloaded and now it is our boss year. Seated back there and yeah, we got the badger. Don't forget Marrone and don't forget the pass rush. Jameis QB1 dropping down to MT. Ball handed off the Alvin with the quick feet. So when you see the Saints marching, yeah, we gon' trouble you. At the Super Bowl party eating on them double. We in the dome right now, we in the zone right now. Put your hands in the air, cause it's on right now. Yeah, we back up in this thing and we coming for the crown. Nick and Kev on the mic.
It's about to go down.
We in the dome right now, we in the zone right now. Put your hands in the air, cause it's on right now. Yeah, we back up in this thing and we coming for the crown. Nick and Kev on the mic.
It's about to go down.
Nick and Kev on the mic.
It's about to go down.
Nick and Kev on the mic.
It's about to go down.
Nick and Kev on the mic.
It's about to go down.
Nick and Kev on the mic.
It's about to go down.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back. Another episode of the NewOrleans.Football podcast. I'm one of the hosts, Nick Underhill, joined as always by the other host, Kevin Washington. We got a big show tonight. Big show talking about just kind of some of the stuff with the coaching staff. What do they do without Sean Payton? How does some people step up? How do they fill in that gap? It's something we kind of talked about a little bit when Sean left, but we can get a little bit more into theory with it now with a little bit more passage of time and seeing how everything is come together. So we'll get into all that. A little talk about the OTA coming up and see where it goes from there. God, what's up with you, man?
No, man, I'm good. I'm good. Just ready to get into this coaching staff conversation. I know that, the part of the thought was like maybe talk about where the team is, but I think after the OTAs, mini camps, et cetera, it'd be good to just kind of take a look at the team at that point. So, but the coaching staff, you kind of know what you get. So I'm ready to pod. I got my unbranded tee. So if anybody want to, sponsor us, any tea guys want to sponsor us, holla. Kevin at NewOrleans.Football. But yeah, man, I'm ready to go, man. Let's pay the bills.
We'll fill your beer cans up with water, whatever we got to do. But
yeah,
if you are a business owner needing some guidance with your daily accounting, Daniel Sant CPA can help get your finances in order. They provide relevant accounting information, detailed analysis, and clear communication in a timely manner. Call today, 318-321-2765, or visit santcpa.com. And if you need legal help with any of the following: car wrecks, offshore injuries, 18-wheeler collisions, Maritime Jones Act, hurricane and storm claims, you better call Bado at 504-323-4777 or 985-677-1085 for your free consultation and case review. That's badolaw.com. And as always, our guys, Firehouse Subs, Vets Boulevard location. Hit them up, get a sub, and enjoy your day because
love,
they'll put a smile on your face. All right, so let's get into it.
Yeah, man. Chat making fun of me. They're saying I switched the shirt up. It's getting more attention. Yeah, man. All right. So yeah, man. This episode, like I was just saying, I think it's a good time to, because the coaching staff is kind of finalized. Like we kind of know.
Look, DJ's out there. He's supposed to be in here working. He's out there in the chat.
Yeah, DJ, man. What you doing, bro?
Come
we got to
get
these. We got to get the. Oh man.
He's skipping work at work. Oh man.
He took a day off and then came to work and ain't getting credit for it. Come on, man. Come on. So yeah, you guys jump down DJ throat, man. Give him a hard time. So but yeah, it's a good time to look at the coaching staff. The coaching staff is finalized. Obviously, there's going to be no major additions, and one of the final questions, right? You can probably say there's a couple of questions about this team, and one of the major ones is, how is this new coaching staff going to adapt without, basically an alpha male, an alpha personality, in the room, right? Which was Sean Payton. So what does that look like? So let's start high level, and then we'll kind of get into some details about some specific position groups and how there's a trickle down effect there. But, just your thoughts high level about like what does this coaching staff have to prove this off season, specifically with this roster, given that they just, Sean Payton just walked out the door.
I think I maybe disagree with the assessment that they don't have like the alpha male in the room. I think DA is definitely that, and he's commanded that defense with that kind of authority over the years. I think it's a different approach to the same outcome.
I should have said apex personality. Maybe that would have been
I think DA's
a
kind of that too. DA's kind of got like a little bit of he's got a chip on his shoulder, man. If you kind of pay attention to how he talks, how he carries himself, and then even just people around him is, I talked to some of his friends and that, like when he got the job and people from his past, and he's always kind of, kind of described as, a little bit of maybe even a cocky individual, a little bit of arrogance to him. And,
You
I
need that to
think
be
that,
successful
yeah,
in the
you
NFL,
do.
probably.
You do. I, I
Yeah,
I just think
yeah.
that there's a little bit of maybe of a difference in how they conduct themselves, to get to that result, to create that edge and that intensity. But I don't think that was ever lacking on the defense. I think the defense maybe even had more personality than the offense the last couple of years, and they kind of played with that edge and brought that energy. And I
Definitely.
just think it's, I think I've talked before about like how Sean was just like so like there was like a jar of Sharpies in the locker room and he wanted an X amount of Sharpies in
Yeah.
the bucket. And if he wanted 36 and there was 27, like he'd snap. And that's kind of how he kept people on edge with some of that stuff. I don't think DA's doing things quite that way. You just even hearing from some people behind the scenes, just day to day, and how there's interactions. There's a little bit less edge on everything, but I think there's still a similar intensity. So there's two different ways, more than two. I mean, there's multiple ways to lead to get to that result, but I think we've seen that intensity, that attention to detail, the accountability, all those things on defense, and it's just bringing that and stretching it across the board to everybody. And I think it's going to be easier for him to kind of command some of that respect, as opposed to being Mike McDaniel, a new coach in a new place, and you got to prove yourself to everybody. Like even offensive guys that maybe haven't had a lot of interaction with DA over the years, they know who he is, they know his work, and they can respect it already. So I think there's kind of that built-in buy-in just because he's already in the building. So I think they'll be able to replace it. It's some of
There's a
the
void there, though, right? There's a void, and someone got to step up and fill like what was there before, right?
there's possibly a void. Yeah, like they
Yeah.
got to show. Yeah, you got to fill in for one of the better coaches in the NFL, and that's not just like a nothing gloss over. Oh, okay, next man up. It's something that's gonna have to be proven over and over and over and
Right,
over. And
right.
maybe Pete helps. Maybe Pete keeps everything up on offense. He's done it before. He's called plays before. He did it for a whole season. The offense still put up points, moved the ball, all that stuff. So, we'll see. I mean, it's kind of a wait and see situation there. But yeah, I mean, I think it's just a lot of things, and in the offensive staff itself. Like we've seen it on defense that DA can keep the intensity up over there.
Yep.
Can the
Mhm.
offensive staff maintain the same intensity without Sean?
Right.
Can they game plan the same way? Can there be that same attention to detail? Are they still going to watch every scoring play in the NFL and steal ideas and know which ones to steal and how they're going to fit into the fabric? And granted, like Pete
Yeah.
Carmichael did some of that, Joe Lombardi did some of it, Ronald Curry stepped up into it last year. But what about Sean's ideas? The stuff he identified. Are people going to be coming up with those ideas? When you take that void out, is somebody else going to step up into that those roles now that there's a pathway open? Maybe they do, maybe they don't. These are all things that we got to see. But there are significant questions to answer. And
Right.
I think on that game planning, offensive intensity, and then just again, the defense had an attitude. I don't think it's going to be an issue bringing that across the board, but
But just the
like,
edge that he brought to the whole team, right?
Right.
I think they, in a lot of ways, took on his. I mean, he's a feisty guy. He's on the sideline arguing with Steve Smith, and when the dude choked, he's got his hand. I mean, he's a different personality, right? And so I do think, right, the team somewhat takes on the personality of the head coach, and
for sure.
yeah, and that's gone, right? And so when I say void, I mean like something was there and it's not there no more. And and it could be something in the house to fill it, obviously. And you would like to look at the staff and think that they, we can fill that gap in a lot of ways. But I do think it's going to be interesting. I don't think everything is going to be filled, but I think things are going to be different, right? So it's not like a loss there potentially, right? We'll see how it turns out. But I think, it like you said before, there's a lot of guys on edge about things. And if Sean is not there, maybe it's just a little bit more loose, but you can still have success either way, right? So it doesn't
Sean,
have to be one way.
Sean was such an influential personality that the people that worked with him and were close to him and around him adopted his lexicon and speech patterns.
I know, right, man? I was telling you that the other day. I was like, bro, like he sounds like Sean.
A little bit, but like
Yeah,
Drew and
Pete,
Mickey and like they
Mickey,
all
Drew.
talk like him. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
crazy. So I mean, like his influence is very, very significant.
Yeah. Well, and talk about this, right? It's two sides, right? And it's not a binary situation. And I think that's how people look at it, right? On one end, it's like, well, Sean Payton is gone. All the play calling talent that came along with him is gone because he's gone. And then the other side is like, well, these guys been around him for years. They can just do what he do because they're so used to it. And I don't think it's either or, right? I think there's maybe things that wasn't done before that they may try now. There's things that Sean took. There's things that, right? It's just not as simple as like he's gone, is gone with it, or these guys can just, can just do what he did and they're his clones. I think it's just there's a middle ground there, right?
Yeah, look, I've heard of some ideas even that they want to try out and some different things they want to do, and immediately the question's, why weren't you doing that before? And it's
Right,
the answer is
right.
kind of, well, Sean's going to Sean, and so kind of the
Yeah.
way Sean did things. Sure, other people, and it worked. In questioning his ideas or
It's kinda
wanting
hard.
to do things a little bit differently,
Yeah.
that isn't necessarily undermining what was done or saying what was done was wrong. It's just the runway's open, and people that had ideas maybe now have the opportunity to explore those ideas. And maybe it takes you to a good place, maybe it takes you to a worse place, but the runway is now open to do some different things and look at things a different way. And
Different training, right? Like,
yeah,
okay, we want to try something different there.
yeah, but I think that's, I think, no disrespect to anybody. I think that they made upgrades there for sure, on the strength and conditioning
One of the
staff
first
for
things
sure.
that changed too when DA got in charge, right?
Yeah, I think that's, as far as some of the coaching hires we'll see on them, I think Doug Marrone, we can probably say safely that's likely to be an upgrade.
Well, talk
like
about that. Talk about the value of him and his experience on the staff with DA. Like, what do you think Marrone brings to this staff, and like, how would that help or hurt? What they're trying to do.
Yeah, so some of the offensive linemen already, they're talking about just the way he talks, how detailed he is, the way he communicates, the way he can tailor his communication to different people. It's just an experienced coach that knows how to coach. That's a good teacher that has a track record of being a good teacher that's achieved a lot of things in football. I think his resume kind of gets overlooked a little bit when you talk about him and some of the spots he had. And I think that you could probably argue that he misplayed a couple situations throughout his career.
Yeah.
The Buffalo thing was a little bit weird how that ended, but he got another job. He got a head coaching job in Jacksonville. He almost took them to a Super Bowl. He coached at Alabama.
But Blake Bortles, no respect to the legend Blake Bortles, former Saint, but like,
yeah,
he didn't have like Tom Brady back there.
yeah, I think there's some things in his, and I don't want to say he misplayed him. I think that's the wrong word, but there's some things that I don't know. Like, I feel like his career could have been maybe a little bit different. It had some things broken a little, differently. So
but that could be a benefit, right? We
it's a
spoke about
benefit
that
for
with
the Saints.
DA. Yeah, there you go, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
talk about it because DA kind of got a similar, situation somewhat, right?
Like Marrone's a offensive line coach right now for the Saints, former head coach, knows how to teach, great teacher. The players speak very highly of him. They've gotten an asset in a role that probably has a resume that exceeds the role. And that's a good thing. That's a good position to be in. And again, these players are talking about just kind of like how clearly he can communicate what he wants them to do. And they leave knowing exactly what they want to do and how to execute the things they need to execute to get to where he wants them to be. Now, we'll see how that
translates.
Results. Yeah. What if it becomes tangible in the results, but the early signs are really good. And, I think Brandon Nugent probably has a bright future in coaching. He's young. He's early on in it. Getting Doug Marrone,
tell him what position group, just Brandon Nugent, the position group he coaches, just for people to have.
Well, he was offensive line coach. He's gone now. He's with the Chargers.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, you got a guy kind of, heading down the runway whereas Marrone's already, his plane's taken off, and you just get a little bit more elevation there because he's just a more experienced coach right now. So think that was a good move for the team. Nugent ends up, he's offensive line coach for the Chargers.
With Lombardi, right?
Yeah,
Bring the group over
things
there.
work out for him. So I think the Saints end up in a good position there with him coaching that position group. And I think if some of these guys are gonna improve and get better, and I think it's important at a handful of spots. I think Eric McCoy's an excellent center. He's still a young player. I think he can still ascend and get better.
He still has room to get better.
I mean, I think there's things that Pete could do better. I think, you got a rookie at left tackle. I think having a very experienced coach and then Streif, a guy who's battled kind of his whole career is just kind of built on technique, training, discipline. Someone that can kind of bring that, and a guy that kind of willed himself somewhere. Those type of people are usually excellent teachers, and everybody listening to this has heard Streif talk. We don't have to
best interviewers.
Yeah, people know.
Payton's era, and no player I would rather hear talk than Zach Streif when he was a player.
and then obviously Ruiz. I think that there's room for him to get better. I had a one-on-one.
He's good like he is, man. He's
well,
good.
Look, I mean,
I'm joking.
I had like a 15-minute conversation with him one-on-one. Gonna have the story this week on it. I think there's some things he's learned about himself that I think
he's aware.
We'll see. Yeah, he's aware. Yeah,
he's aware. Yeah, I mean, you can look at it as Marrone. If you just look at his resume, is probably as qualified to be a head coach as the guy who's sitting in the chair, right? I mean, he's been an offensive coordinator. He's been a head coach in 2 different places. He's been an O-line coach under Nick Saban under Sean Payton. Has done his own thing. So, yeah, this is a guy that you feel good about, right? And one thing I heard him saying, just comment on it. He said that when it comes to pinning, that's Zach's project, right? Zach Streif is going to just one-on-one with this guy consistently. He's going to work him, and I'm going to take maybe a holistic view at the O-line, just kind of bringing everybody together, right? So he said that, and I thought that was interesting because,
for more on that, sign up to the website. That was a conversation exclusive to NewOrleans.Football. So sign up for the site, read the rest of that story.
Yep. All right. There we go. We shouldn't. All right. But that's that. Anyway, regardless, I think just, the team traditionally has had success when they've had a good O-line, right? And I think other than quarterback, for the Saints, I think over the years, it's been the most important group, right? It's a one-to-one correlation with success that the team that they have when they have a good O-line. And so, you could maybe say last year wasn't as good of a year that they've kind of been known to have. I thought, going into the season, people would have said that this is one of the better O-lines in the league, and they probably didn't play up to it due to injuries and other reasons, obviously. But, if this team wants to have success, like, it doesn't matter if Jarvis Landry and Michael Thomas, well, it does help those guys get open fast, but if you can't protect, you can't run block, it's just going to slow the team down. So it's one of those position groups that we haven't really talked a lot about, but you can make a case that, they're kind of like at the crossroads of success for the team. Yep. Okay. Well, a major point for you.
Yeah.
Right? What do you want me to say?
Yeah, I had nowhere to go with that. Yep.
Man, sometimes I get it right. But so one thing that, they did with DA was, they went for more continuity, right? And you can say that this was the right approach because it wasn't broke, or, you can say maybe they should have injected some new blood. So how do you think that's going to play into, what they're trying to do and their decision to say, okay, well, we don't need to blow this staff up. We're going to keep it as is. We build a good staff. Like, what's your thoughts about that decision? And do you think they should have went that route, or do you think they should have, maybe kind of went left a little bit and maybe try some different things or with some different guys?
I think the continuity's, I've been consistent on this. Keeping it the same, I think, is where you start. And then if you need to correct it later, you correct it later. But blowing up something that's worked in something that
it up.
Yeah, look, I think they've had an offensive system that's been enviable around the league for a long time. And again, the last 2 years, sure, it's been a downward for the offense. They didn't have the personnel. You're right. Yeah.
You can't do it without nobody.
So yeah, I mean, you can have Bill Walsh, and if your team isn't good, your team isn't good. Like,
you can have Sean Payton.
Yeah, there's only so much you can do if the wide receivers aren't getting open, and the guards aren't blocking, and if the tight ends aren't making plays up the seam. There's a lot of stuff that just coaching can't overcome, and so I don't think it was anything to do with the system. so I think keeping it together was the right move. This system's running with one of the top 4 or 5 best quarterbacks in the league right now, Justin.
And the Chargers.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Justin
in
Herbert.
LA.
Yeah. So I mean,
Yep.
people want the system. I think having the system in place, having the guy closest to Sean still running it is a good thing.
Well, what a segue! What a segue! Thank you. How much is there any coach on the team with more pressure than Pete Carmichael?
Dennis Allen.
Yeah, easy. I made that
Yeah.
too easy for you. Talk about what Pete got to do though. Talk about just because I think a lot of look, Pete's is a big question mark, right? Because this, he's one of the most boring interviews you ever hear, and that's not a knock on Pete. Pete just he doesn't say much, right? You can kind of like predict his answers, right? And so yeah, I mean, that personality kind of being someone who seems like he's just kind of happy where he is. I mean, a lot of, we know the commentary around it, right? We don't need to repeat it, but like, what's your thoughts on him and just his personality and being able to, like, if someone has to have an edge on offense, like last year they kind of held Jameis back a little bit. Maybe it was Sean's looming presence over the quarterback. Like, is that necessary, and is that something that they're going to miss if Pete can't bring that to the offensive side of the ball?
I think it's going to be fascinating to see how they approach it with Jameis. All their moves this offseason say that they're going to open it up and they aren't going to hold him back and they're going to let him do a little bit more.
Mhm.
However, the guy calling the shots for the holistic point, everybody on the team, defensive coach, has a great defense. And I think all you kind of have to do really on offense is not screw up. If you don't screw up, I think the team's going to win a lot of games. So I'm going to
Should
be
that be the
interested.
approach, though? Should that be the approach? Should the approach be, I mean, because that's a more conservative approach, right? Do you think the offense should be more aggressive, right? I mean, like, what's your thoughts on how to approach? Because you got Michael Thomas, you got Jameis Winston, big weapon. You drafted Chris Olave, Alvin Kamara is still there, Jarvis Landry. You O-line, you think the protection is right? That seems like it could be an aggressive offense, right? Because you bought in the weapons for it. But do you think maybe Pete and DA, DA, he is a defensive coach, and maybe, like, how do you think they play that? Like, what does that look like?
It's so hard to answer, man, because I think the stuff they did
hard questions.
the stuff they did last year is, I think it's hard to pick it apart. Honestly, they were winning games. The approach worked, and when the approach is working and you're winning games, it's hard to say, okay, they should have did this, they should have did that, and this was wrong. And on the other hand, I think you have to trust your quarterback and allow him to do a little bit more. But I mean, it's tough, man, because like the people that get behind Jameis, and if you're going to make the case for Jameis and all this stuff, like, he put up all these amazing efficiency numbers while being kind of in this bubble
bubble.
Yeah,
that's right.
of
Bubble.
Okay, going to rely on the defense, take what's there, and protect the ball. And I think the approach worked, and I think he was probably as good as anybody could have been at executing that vision. Grant, we have the film reviews. There's some throws that weren't made, and all this stuff, and kind of getting really nitpicky. But overall, numbers are good, winning games. I don't think that you need to put everything on his shoulder, though. I think that would be a mistake. But I think that would be a mistake with just about every quarterback this side of, I don't know who, but going down
Patrick
4 or 5
Mahomes
guys.
Josh Allen, yeah.
I mean, I think you have the team and the structure to kind of maybe Tannehill it a little bit, kind of let him do what he does, but rely on the defense, get the ball to the playmakers, let the playmakers make plays, take some shots. But overall, I don't think that you need to go into any game being like, you know what, the quarterback is going to win this game for the team. The team's too good and too well-rounded to really kind of exist in that space. So I think there's a medium between, 2015 Drew Brees and 2021 Jameis Winston.
2021, yeah.
Yeah, like if you can kind of get to like whatever the 17 version of the offense would be built around Jameis, which I think is kind of, some quick game, some bootlegs, some play action down the field, stuff where you're kind of keeping him out of those trouble spots for the most part, plays where you're kind of limiting the possibility of interceptions and things like that, like throwing it down the field, like it's kind of, you kind of want him putting the ball where his guy has a shot for it. And a lot of those usually aren't plays that get picked off. So I think there's a space, a comfort space where you got to do more than you did last year, but it doesn't need to be like ride or die Jameis, because I just think that's stupid for this team, period. Like that's just not how you want them to operate. It's not what they need to do to win games. They can win 10, 11, 12 games with Jameis as quarterback, doing a little bit more than last year, as long as you're not making him take unnecessary risks. But I think that's true for any quarterback, really.
Yeah. I think it's. I'm with you. I don't think it has to be, ultra conservative offense or super aggressive Andy Reid, right, type offense, right? I think there is a middle ground, and I think DA is a defensive minded coach, and
oh my God,
typically those guys.
Like saying Jameis is like could run an offense in a Tannehill type way is not an insult to Jameis at all. Tannehill's a guy that's on the cusp of winning a Super Bowl. Like he has the Titans there. This is a comment in the chat.
I know. I'm just seeing it. Yeah, the Titans were the number one seed in the AFC last year.
How is that? How is that an insult? Like, Jameis could be a guy that gets his team to the cusp of the Super Bowl.
Seed in the AFC,
you're tearing down my guy. How are we tearing? Right. Nobody's tearing down anybody. It's just saying that you can kind of rely on Derrick Henry and a good defense, and that's probably the smart way to play. And then when you need Tannehill to step up, let Tannehill step up in those moments and win those games. But going into it saying Tannehill ride or die when you got Derrick Henry and a very good defense and Brown and some of these other playmakers and good tight ends, that's probably not how that's probably not how you want to play. That's probably not how you want to play the game.
The guy doesn't. It's not like there's a middle ground between Joe Montana and Jamarcus Russell.
Yeah,
right.
And I think there's an argument that like Tannehill executes his job probably just about as well as any but other quarterback in his role. Things are built around him. He does it really well. That doesn't mean he's as talented as a top 4, 5, 6 quarterback, but I think he executes his job as well as any of those guys. And the proof is there. They're on the cusp of they're one of the top teams in the AFC every year now. I mean, so
number 1 seed last year. So I mean, if that's a bad result, then I don't know, man. I mean, look, what you want to do is put enough weapons around the quarterback where the guy can operate, right? You want to first protect them and give him someone to throw the ball to. And that's what they did with Jameis. So, typically now you just need to manage the game. And for some reason, game manager has become like a negative term, which every great quarterback who's ever played in the NFL is a game manager. It's the number one job of the quarterback, right? Like just make the plays that are there and don't try to make the plays that are not there.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that's what you want out of Jameis, right? Jameis doesn't need to break the passing record. Right. That's not what's required of a team with this defense. Right. Now, there are some games where it may play out that way, but yeah, I mean, you definitely don't need, and I don't think that's good for Jameis. That's not good for any quarterback, right? To have to be up under that much pressure. I mean, we remember, heck, when Drew had, he's a Hall of Fame guy and he was throwing a lot of interceptions because he knew that he couldn't trust his defense.
Yeah.
Right. And like Drew's like top 5. Right. And so, yeah, it's just that's the formula for a successful quarterback. 9 times out of 10 is, him not having to be a superhero every time he's.
I mean, Tom Brady's the greatest quarterback of all time, and he's made a career out of throwing 5-yard passes and taking shots when it makes sense.
There you go, man. Had that 1 year
with it.
Yeah, with the Randy Moss experiment, but for the most part, his best receiver has been the guy that catches the ball out the slot.
Yeah, or the tight end going up the seam. I mean, he's throwing seam routes and whip routes and quick outs and crossing routes.
The right play. And Drew made a career out of it too, didn't he?
Yeah, I mean he did. Brady, don't get me wrong, Brady's good down the field, but it's not like he's leading down the field and it's staying out of mistakes, making the right decision, being timing based, and managing the game plan. I mean, any good quarterback is a good game manager. I mean, yeah, sure, you got your gunslingers, but honestly, I would rather have the guy that stays out of trouble, makes the plays that are there than the ride or die quarterback that's, it's just operating off of talent and not, a ton of intelligence. I think I'll take the intelligent quarterback who's making good decisions and being sound 20 out of 20 times. And I mean, that's kind of where Jameis was last year. He was the guy making the good, right, safe decisions. And I will take that every single day. And that's kind of who he's been. I think his career, the Arian season kind of got him out of character, and we'll see. But yeah, if he can stay on that path, I mean, look, managing it and doing what you got to do for your team to win, that's the mark of a good player. That's what you want. And it's situation based so much, man.
Yeah.
And like I said, I think Tannehill does his job as well as anybody. And while we're on like kind of talking about, talking points and everything, the Jameis Winston has a limp thing became the stupidest story.
I wasn't gonna bring that up, man, because I know you're a little
story of the year. And it's annoying on all fronts. I think it is an example of kind of how he gets talked about differently than other people. I mean, it's an acknowledgement of that, because there's quarterbacks that aren't in camps right now who aren't getting talked about. You have a guy in camp practicing while still rehabbing an injury, and somehow it's turned into something negative, which is insane to me. Like him being out there, and the whole reason for saying like Jameis is out there, and he was, writing in the story, he was limping between some snaps, and he was, especially later in the practice. To me, it was like an inspiring thing looking at him, and it made me believe in him more as a player than anything I've kind of, any other reason. It's just kind of like, man, he's out there. This guy's a leader. Like he's trying to do everything he can, and his drops look good. He was throwing passes. He missed one team period. He did everything else in the practice. Like it was a positive thing that he was practicing. And then it's just kind of like people grab the word limp, and I don't even think they read the story. They just grabbed the word limp, and it's kind of like Jameis is limping. Is he okay? Is he gonna? Yeah, he's okay. He's 6 months removed. He said, where I got annoyed though is like people that are like on the Jameis side are like getting mad at you for saying he's limping at practice. Jameis said with his own mouth that he's still limited in his movements from the meniscus tear, that he can't do bootlegs, that he's still kind of getting used to moving with a brace, that there's like all this stuff, there's still runway to go before he's 100%. He had surgery 6 months ago. He tore his ACL, he tore his MCL, he tore his meniscus. Like, what are you expecting? But he's practicing. He's doing good drop backs. He looks good dropping back. He's bouncing on his toes. Like, to me, that says that like things are going well in the knee. Like, I don't think there's anything to be worried about at all. It was just kind of one of the, and it becomes a thing on Tuesday. The practice was Thursday. The whole thing was, it's just, people gotta like just get to like a normal place with this guy, man. It's just like, it's so annoying. Like the people want to blow stuff up with him and make it worse than it is, and then it makes other people be defensive. And meanwhile, there's quarterbacks not even in camps right now, and nobody's talking about that, and that doesn't matter. Nobody's freaking out that Marshawn Lattimore isn't practicing. It's that Jameis is practicing with the limp. Like, come on, man. Like, this just be normal. Like, let it be normal. Like, can we just have normal conversations and just go through it and talk about what's happening and keep everything in perspective and not strip context from it? And I don't know. It's just kind of kind of a nutty thing, man. No,
it is, man. It's annoying, right? Because you don't want to get me ranting, but it's like, we have to. This is the starting quarterback for this team. We cover this team. We have to talk about him.
Nobody's at us for covering the team, man. It's
kind of But what I'm saying, I'm getting to it though, right? But the thing is, like, we're gonna have to say, like, oh, that was a bad decision. He shouldn't have done this. Oh, this was a good thing. And there's no finality in those statements. The guy needs to work on this. There's no hell. I got some stuff I need to work on in my career too, right? And so it's not all. It's everything is not a lightning rod. Like, he's not Tannehill. It's like, no, it's just it's an example. We said, Tannehill, him. Like, it's like meaning just your team around you will take care of this stuff. You don't need to, and so I just think there has to be a middle ground with like, like we're just covering that play. It's not no finality in what we're saying, right? And so, it's very challenging to have objective conversations about
I will say though, man, just like seeing him out there practicing and all that stuff, like I kind of have like increased belief in him.
Get you a half shirt.
That's kind of what Look, man, I think it's a sign of like amazing leadership, though. I think a lot of people
They've
probably
infiltrated the government.
look, man. I'm telling you though, like jokes aside, like I really think that like a lot of people probably wouldn't be practicing and doing the things he's doing. Like
Yeah.
they would just kind of be kind of back, and I think he's
Yeah.
taking advantage of the opportunity. I think that I wrote in the story like he's operating as if somebody who kind of feels like failure isn't an option. Like it's just not something
Yeah.
he's going to allow to happen. Like he's operating as if, now that doesn't mean anything, but he's operating as if like,
Yeah.
nope, I can practice. I can be out here. I can be getting reps in with Chris Olave, getting my timing down, seeing how he runs his routes,
Yeah.
learning
yeah.
his body language. I'm going to do that. And that to me is a mark of a good leader, somebody that's aware of the opportunity and not letting a moment pass that he can take advantage of. And that just kind of watching him, I'm like, man, like,
It's inspiring. Yeah. to see
I
him go out
believe
there
in
and do
him.
his
I
job.
believe in him, like in his ability to get this done a little bit more than I did on Wednesday of last week. And
Yeah.
that's just that's probably how his teammates feel about him too. They're kind of like, man, he's out here, he's throwing passes. Leg looks a little heavy every now and then, but man, he's out here with us. Like I want to get behind this guy. And I think that stuff matters, man. And when
Yeah.
like 12 key players are missing and the quarterback's there, like I think that says something as well, kind of about who he is. And okay, it's okay for people of my stature not to be here, but I'm going to be here. And
Right.
I think that says something.
he had all the reason in the world not to.
Right. He's actually hurt. Like, yeah.
Yeah. He has all the reason and incentive to not be out there. Right. And I don't think people would have thought less of him. Right. But I think being out there made people think more of him. Right. And so, I mean, yeah, I think it says a lot about him and the type of leader that he is. And, that, yeah, I like covering, it's, yeah, I mean, I think it's just, it's fun we should be able to cover him and talk about that. And then, hey, if something is, not as great, then, it's all part of like the big picture here.
Hey, we
It's
just got to
like-
do us, man. Like we aren't going to fix the problems of this. Like we just got to be fair, do our thing. It's just,
Like
it just
West
is what
Side.
it is. Yeah.
Like West Side, like West Side. All right, well let's get through some of the other guys on the coaching staff, because we got there's a few more things I want to get your thoughts on. Another guy that has quite a bit of, I don't know if quite a bit of pressure is the right word. Maybe some people can classify it as that, but I would say there's a microscope on it, and it's the wide receiver coach, right? Cody Burns. He's a relatively young guy. I think he's 33. My goodness. Coaches are younger than me now. This feels interesting. And he's a young guy. He's got Mike Thomas in the room. He has to get his buy-in, which, we think that's not an issue. You got Jarvis Landry coming in. You got a rookie, a super rookie, just, wildly talented, does a lot of what you want to see a rookie wide receiver do. And so, yeah, I mean, just your thoughts on, the role and the expectations of him coming into such a, a polarizing position group over the last probably, 3 years.
Well, he's gonna have an easier job than Curtis Johnson had. I'll say that. Like Curtis Johnson never had the talent that Burns is walking into.
CJ looking at New like, word. Like,
yeah, no, if anybody should feel wronged, yeah, it should be him. Absolutely.
That's what's hot. Okay, all right.
Absolutely, yeah. So, I mean, look, I think it's a tough job though, because just the number one guy, like you got to build a relationship with him out of nowhere. And I don't think that's an easy thing to do. You got to earn his trust and all that. And that's going to be something, he's got to develop Olave and kind of get Olave where he needs to go. I don't think there's a lot of developing that needs to happen with him, but just kind of just helping him continually push, get to the next level. And the expectations for Olave are extremely high. Like he should be a number one receiver and at some point should possibly ascend to that, be ready to take over that role whenever Mike Thomas's time with the team or his career comes to an end. So I think
get
that's
more out of guys like Marquez Callaway. I mean, it's some other guys, Deontay Harris. Maybe there's some, it's like it's not just the top 3 guys, right? Or the rookie. He's a lot of
Traquan Smith can do more, and kind of. I don't know how much coaching Jarvis Landry needs, but just making sure he picks everything up and is ready to go. So there's a lot on him, and I think there's a decent amount of pressure on him because of the talent. Like I don't think that it's going to be acceptable if they're like just okay at receiver. They need to be really good at that position with or without Mike Thomas. Like they have to find a way to be good at it. Like you gave up all these assets to have Chris Olave. Chris Olave has to be good, and you need to be a good team.
Yeah.
Jarvis Landry needs to be a good player. You need to get these other guys up to the next level. So I don't think that, again, I don't think failure's an option there. And I think that there should be an expectation. And I think, again, I think Mike's going to play. I think Mike's going to be good. I'm just saying there's a possibility of,
You
who
got to
knows?
think about it. You got
Yeah.
to think about it.
So
He's missed 2 years. Yeah.
so
come on.
him aside, I still think they need to be a good group. I don't think there's an excuse for anything. I don't think that statement's contingent on Mike. They need to be really good, and then with Mike, they need to be, really, really good. So
Spectacular.
he's got to find a way to make it work. And okay,
Right.
Callaway should be a good number 3 guy behind Olave and Jarvis if in the doomsday Mike scenario. So now you got to
Yeah.
have him ready to meet that challenge. Traquan should be a good number 3 guy. You got to find a way to help him accentuate the things that he does well and do it more consistently.
I'm really
Hardy's
interested in seeing Callaway as a weapon in the offense where he's not the primary. I think
Yeah.
he's a better like if they wouldn't have signed Landry, I was a big proponent of the Landry signing, right? But I do think Callaway, he's a different type of slot. He's like a big slot, kind of like Colston was. Not the exact type of players, but he can play there. But yeah, he's a guy that like I would like to see development from, right? Under a new coaching staff, some new things. A guy who showed some things last year, was in a tough position. Like, it's just not the top guys that he has to keep in line. It's like, you want to develop some depth at the position too, because injuries happen there.
Yeah. Yeah, but I mean, look, I think there's a lot on Burns, and he's got to figure it out, and he's got to make that thing run, man. No matter who's
Yeah.
out there, what's out there.
Yeah.
There's too much investment in the position. They have the pieces. It's got to work. And I'm also interested to see kind of what he brings just to the
Offensive
game planning room.
game
Yeah.
planning. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
College
exactly.
guy should have some fresh ideas. I expect to see some new wrinkles and just
Marrone was
some
in college,
adaptation of some of these concepts that can be married with the Sean Payton, Pete Carmichael offense and
Exactly.
just some different things that they can do there.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, definitely. All right, let's switch. It's definitely not as much, not as many questions on the other side of the ball, but just on the defensive side of the ball. With DA being the head coach, before he really only had to worry about the defense, right? And now, you're the head coach, you're the CEO, right? So everything stops with you. So it's just not possible for him to spend as much time on the defense as he did before, right? And so, how do you think that that's going to affect the team? And do you think there's a trickle down effect, with him not maybe being able to be there as much, or Ryan Nielsen and Chris Richard are very highly sought guys on the defensive side of the ball? Should they be able to kind of make up for that time that DA may not be able to spend on the defensive side of the ball?
Yeah, I think they'll be able to make up for some of the things that he isn't able to do there. And you already do kind of see him doing some different things. He was there was one of the receivers, I don't know if it was, I think it might have been Traquan, like kind of showing him, how to detail a route and things like that. And I think that's an interesting perspective from somebody that kind of has a background in the secondary that can maybe see some of those things through a different light and a different perspective. Like you used to see Sean doing that stuff all the time, but seeing DA do it was kind of notable to me because it's just you don't see him cross that line. But I do think it'll kind of be like how it was before, where at practice Sean's at this end of the field, DA's at this end of the field, and now it'll be DA and Pete for the most part. But you do got to oversee things. I think that you got to be more aware of everything that's kind of going on. But I think for the most part, I think this primary focus probably will be more so on the defense and the offense. And when it's not, there are good generals there, like having both those guys there. But ultimately, defensively, I think that he's still the overseer, that he's still, the guy kind of where it all comes back to him on that side of the ball.
Yeah. No, definitely. I think they're in a good position, like to have their, have the CEO of that side of the ball, maybe have his time a little bit more divided. You have to be when you have defensive coordinators. Like if you call the plays as the head coach and you got 2 guys under you and they're both the defensive coordinator, I would say that's a pretty strong coaching on that side of the ball. And you would like to think they're pretty good at linebacker also. So which if you on the defensive side of the ball, like, and these are just fun questions. Like, which guy would you say? Which coach would you say is under the most pressure to have their unit perform? Is it, Chris Richard getting all those guys to come together in the secondary, new guys? Is it Ryan Nielsen? He got to get Peyton Turner. He's got to get him going. He's got to coach him up and, kind of get him to have a better year than he had last year. We need Davenport healthy. You got all these new guys they signed. You got Passanio coming back. Street is on the team. Or is it, Coach Hodges is, he's Pete Werner is coming and, DeMario Davis is still there. And, you got a rookie you need to develop. So just teeing up the question for you, like, which one of those guys did you look at and say, okay, well, like you gotta, the most pressure lies with this positional coach.
I think it's Richard. I think there's been more turnover in the secondary than anywhere else, but then also a subsequent investment that maybe suggests that they should be better in that area. It's kind of insane. Like, they drafted a dude in the second round that might not get on the field, and there's really no pressure for him to get on the field. Nobody's really looking for him to play. Right. He's kind of like a bonus guy. But
they mention special teams when they talk about him a lot of times, right?
At the same time, it kind of feels like they drafted somebody's eventual replacement. So, like, there's a development component there as well with him. But yeah, I mean, they got the safeties. May's going to miss some games most likely to start the year. So you're going to kind of have to start out with two guys there and then kind of shift to another set of guys later in the season, bring them together. And I think a lot of the success of the team rides on that safety group in the secondary as a whole maintaining the strength of the unit from last year. And they got the pieces to do it, but you got to put it together. You got to make it work. And there's just like there's a lot with these safeties, man. Like, it's just kind of like, there's so much talent there, but they have to make it. You got to work.
Definitely with the safeties, right? You got a versatile guy in Honey Badger. You got, May, who is a talented young player who, was highly sought of a franchise tag guy before, he suffered that Achilles injury. And then, you got a guy in the second round who was drafted in the second round, and Justin Evans, who is a very talented guy, but, can he stay on the field? Can he kind of rehabilitate his career from maybe what the expectation was when he was drafted in such a high position? You got to keep Marrone, motivated and, just keep him challenged. Maybe that's a better term, because I think that's what he said that he prefers. CD Deuce is a fun guy. You got to develop Alontae Taylor, and Adebo's a second-year player who he can actually get better. Like, and I don't think I haven't mentioned that this offseason, and that, it's something I could have been better about, but he could actually turn into a really good player, right? I mean, I know we saw that they drafted him, and they may be trying to replace him, but he could end up good. So it does seem like the secondary is the group with the most questions, the most that needs to be managed, and the position group that's going to probably have the most pressure on them. Yeah. I'll say this. I think when you look at how it was when he was drafted, and then you look at it, kind of how it is now, it does seem like the thought behind the Taylor draft pick has changed a lot, right? When they first made the pick, it was like, well, who is this guy? Crazy draft pick, blah, blah, blah. Now it seems just like, I don't know, things have settled down, and it just seems like that draft pick has become more popular as maybe time has passed with it.
It's clear when, like, if you go out there and you watch him 30 seconds.
Yeah.
Like, it's clear why they drafted him. Now, does it come together? That's a whole entire different conversation. But if you were to go out there and just everybody's no numbers, blank helmets, he's somebody that you would notice quickly, and you'd be like, all right, let me watch this guy and see what he can do, because his size and his movement ability commands attention, and that's why they drafted him. And we'll see how it goes. I think there's a lot of development that needs to take place. But yeah, it's interesting, and he can do everything. Like, we talk about him competing with Adebo on the outside. Like, there might be competition at multiple spots in the secondary. I don't know that it's necessarily coming after Adebo. It might be.
I got some thoughts on that too, but I ain't ready to like go all the way there yet. But I know exactly where your mind is.
Well,
I know exactly where your mind is.
They talk about him at every spot at cornerback. So I mean, like,
I'll say this, they got a player that's contract extension is coming up, and it's going to be an interesting extension. And you know, I think that's one of those moves where you look at it and say, all right, you do it a year too early than a year too late.
Yeah, I'm not ready to go there yet. I think that
I'm not all the way there, but I'm just saying, like, when you draft a guy in the second round, everybody in the secondary has to start paying attention.
Right, absolutely. Yeah,
Everybody,
absolutely.
right?
Yeah.
And he can play outside, he can play in the slot. Well, who outside needs to be worried? Who plays in the slot, right? Because he's a cornerback, so he's going to play one of those two slots, and that's a premium position. So if I'm a cornerback or on that team, I'm looking like, okay, well, who's this guy?
Right.
And
Yeah.
that's just what it is. All right, final thing for me. And this is just another fun one that you're probably gonna text me about asking you. Do you think that the defense? What do you think of the chances the defense is better this year than it was last year? If you say 50-50, if they're equal, 51-49, they're better. 49.
It's tough because they play a harder schedule, so I don't know if they'll statistically be better, but they could execute equally as well and take a step back.
But forget statistics. We talk. We watch film here. We talk about the football stuff, right? Just they can be worse statistically and be a better defense.
I mean, I think they should have a better pass rush if guys are healthy early in the season. So that's one place it goes. I think the secondary should probably make more plays than it did a year ago. I think just kind of some of the things that they can do with those guys is going to be an uptick. Adebo should take a step forward. So I think there's a handful of things that they could do and do better than they did a year ago. But I do think it would be hard for them to eclipse the statistical production that they had overall a year ago.
Yeah, that's just
points allowed and all that stuff. Like they're just playing a better schedule, so I think that's going to be hard to replicate. But I think they should still be a really, really good unit. And I just think that also, like, if they're playing a less conservative style of football, like there might be more possessions and things to defend. So I think statistically, like it's going to change. It's going to change a little bit, but overall, I think that they could be a more dynamic team. So yeah, I mean that's kind of where I'm at with it.
Yeah. And just looking at chat, I'm not saying that he's going to replace CD Deuce. By the way, I'm not insinuating that, like saying that that's going to happen. I'm saying that, if there becomes a situation where he prices himself out of New Orleans, then it's good to have.
Well, he could also replace him in the slot, and then CD plays more of a Swiss Army knife,
a Joker
type
role
of too.
Yeah, exactly. So, but yeah, I'm just saying that when you draft a guy in the second round, Reggie Bush said it's been nice New Orleans. So, like when they draft a guy high at your position, even if it's more than one of you,
Yeah, somebody's on notice because you don't draft a guy in the second without him playing. So it's either Marrone just signed a mega deal, so they aren't looking at Marrone. There's only two other cornerbacks, so either Adebo's on notice, and I think immediately he's at Adebo's neck before anybody else's. So if you take that job now, I mean that's your path. So I mean it's kind of he's there to come after somebody somewhere. They see him as a cornerback. It's not as a safety. Granted, the cornerback thing could possibly not go the way you want it to go. And so now maybe one of the safeties are on notice, but somebody in the secondary, ideally, after drafting a guy in the second round, from a front office point of view, he's taken somebody's job, maybe not this year, but next year.
Yeah. Yep. And for a second round pick, you want him to be successful, right? It's like, and that's not a throwaway pick. That's a really high, significant draft pick. And so, and they use it at a premium position. And so, maybe, he's a backup his whole career. Maybe he takes a starting position for somebody, but you have to pay attention when they draft a guy at a position at high, and then you start looking at who's already there, and that's just how the NFL. It's like if he's really good, and one of those guys want to get paid, they're going to let him walk because you already got his replacement in the door, and so that's just how it is. So, all right, guys, listen, let's get ready to shut this thing down. But before we do, anyone who is listening to us who is not a subscriber of NewOrleans.Football, please just go on and just open a new tab. I know you guys are in web browsers and some may be streaming on YouTube apps, but just go into your favorite web browser, type in NewOrleans.Football/subscribe. I promise you this beautiful website will come up and it'll let you pick a tier, and it'll be one of the best football decisions you've ever made. So Yeah, we would just me my way of saying we appreciate anyone who want to support us, who's not, and as always, we want to say thanks to the guys who are supporting us, guys and gals who are supporting us, because we can't do it without you guys. So, you guys be good, you guys be safe. Thank you guys for listening. We will see you next week. We out.